I don't have a large voice, so if you could reduce talking amongst each other. I don't have a large voice. So I'm honored that Shirley asked me to speak. Originally it was to speak about the Pine Ridge experience that I had, but that was rescheduled for mid-July. So I've been doing some research on hybrids and also people who consider themselves star seeds. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so most people got one of these copies. It's basically my presentation. I'm going to try to fit all this in a half an hour, 45 minutes. So I do follow what Mary Rodwell has researched as far as starseeds and hybrids. And I've also been counseled by her, and she's helped me out tremendously. What I'm going to do in my presentation today is go through some of her ideas of characteristics and some problems and successes with the hybrids and the starseeds. And I'm bringing in my expertise in identity because as a master's candidate, I studied selfhood and identity related to trauma and also related to development. And so I'm combining the idea of how we develop our identity and our personhood in relationship to hybrids and starseeds. And you'll see as I go through the presentation, there could be a little bit of hiccups with a child who might be a hybrid or a starseed developing their identity because they're developing their identity in a dualistic manner rather than just taking their society and their parents as a grounding for them to develop their identity. They're also bringing in their identity of their star family and any type of interaction they've had with that. So that's the basis of my talk tonight. I am myself either a hybrid or a starseed. I haven't figured it out yet. And during the presentation, I'm going to go over some of the characteristics that Mary Rodwell cites in her books.
Do you have your copy?
I don't, I'm sorry.
I'm sure.
And so we're going to go over that. And every time I say a conversation or I say a characteristics, either do this or do that, and you'll find out how many you may have of the characteristics. I feel like there's a lot of starseeds in the world right now. So the overview is this presentation will cover the characteristics of starseeds and hybrid peoples, those who are awakened in these modern times. Also covered are the multi-layered psychological changes that may be occurring to these individuals. These changes are to be seen as conjectures in this presentation. Some of the research is cited in this material from Mary Rodwell as well as Barbara Lamb. Awakening occurs, as far as I'm concerned, with the beginning of experiences of the following: higher functions of intuitive connections to their star family, vivid dreams of being with their star family, being on a spaceship, being abducted, and having conversations with extraterrestrials, increased creativity, increased sense of well-being. There are many more experiences, as each starseed hybrid is very unique. The dark side of this awakening can at times result in increased anxiety, nightmares, and a sense of unease for the starseeds and hybrids who have trouble letting go of their ego state as it has been conceived so far. And suggestions will be offered during this talk in a cognitive behavioral framework, which is very easily doable, and positive self-talk for anybody here who is a starseed or a hybrid. I'm hoping that this material can be of service to you, or if you know any grandchildren who are. So describe the characteristics of starseeds and hybrid individuals. And I'm using, in a general term, the new humans that Mary Rodwell uses that term to include those starseeds is a general term, and then more specifically the hybrid children or adults. I'm not going to go into walk-ins, but that's a whole other category. Variations and particulars of characteristics are found among hybrids. This is addressed later in the presentation. Not all of the following characteristics may present or are currently realized by the new human or starseed, depending on their light and their DNA activation timeline. So this is the participation for all of you. Just do this if you want to keep it silent, or do that every time something rings true for you in your life. Having some ADHD or ADD, autistic spectrum, dyslexic, or letter people, and we'll go over that later. Some struggle with depression. I have all of that. Cognitive abilities. Superior cognitive abilities, which allows them to connect with the multidimensional world more readily, photographic memories, telekinetic abilities, mind meld skills, the ability to have awareness through other consciousness, human and animal, interspecies communications. Some can override the current widespread terrestrial consciousness and programming with multidimensional truths, nonlinear thinking, precognition, able to articulate non-human languages. So when I did have a chance to discuss my life with Mary, and she did some counseling, it did come up as far as certain of these attributes. And she talked a lot to me about when she was doing research about the younger hybrids, under the age of 20, under the age of 10 even, who override the programming. They don't even buy into any of our BS. They just know our game, and they just tell their mom and dad, no, I'm not going there. My star family tells me this and that. So Mary's world is full of these interactions with these children. Okay, number C, sensory abilities. Heightened sensitivities in all 5 senses, ability to sense what a truth is, an innate ability to assess individuals through their essence and frequency, perception of reality with various parts of the body, not just through the eyes, perception of more of the visual spectrum than normal. So that would mean maybe perhaps being able to see auras and see different frequencies that might be emitting from an individual.
Is it goosebumps? When you get goosebumps?
Yeah, that would be one.
That's it. Okay.
So psychic abilities and spiritual sensitivities, nonverbal communication, telekinetic abilities, conscious astral travel, connection to universal spirituality and higher consciousness, not limited to religions, an innate understanding of the multidimensional reality, an innate awareness of healing energies and how to utilize them, ability to manipulate time and space, ability to sense and perceive the presence and energies, ETs, spirits, interdimensional presence, ability to assess past lives of self here on Earth and other planetary systems, naturally born with wisdom and universal awareness, connected to life forms in all nature, precognition, seeing future events, manifestation of unusual scripts and symbols. And for me personally, as a child, I would over and over again doodle with these geometric patterns, and they would always be like in a Chinese type of formation, and I didn't know what I was doing. But I found out later as an adult, I'm 62, I found out about 2 years ago, I have some pretty, at times, devastating autistic tendencies, and to me that was stemming. I was helping myself calm down by writing these geometric patterns. And as an artist now, rediscovering my art, I'm investigating that again. I just go into a meditation and I do those geometric shapes, and I can spend hours. It's like a meditation, you know, for me. Creativity, usually gifted. So there's a lot of kids now that are hybrids and starseeds who are very musical. They're like a Mozart type of genius type of individual. There is an autistic school, or a school for autistic children on the spectrum in Pittsburgh, and I just heard it through the grapevine. They have these kids here that are telekinetic right here in Pittsburgh, and they're very psychic. They just look you up and down, and they'll tell you everything about yourself. And so that matches up with what Mary researches with these children being highly autistic and then functioning, high functioning pretty much. mid-range autistic, and they're able to have these abilities. So what I did bring her book, and what I did in this, and you're welcome to keep it, is I categorized her list according to different abilities. Like I categorized cognitive and sensory and grouped them all together for your benefit. In addition to the above characteristics of starseed hybrids, Mary addresses the following characteristics in today's children and young adults. So this particular list would be like a heightened sense of your reality to do with the younger kids, like between maybe toddler age when they're able to actually speak into like maybe 10 years old. Having conscious recall of their experiences, having little fear in encountering ETs and beings, accept their encounters are comfortable, acknowledge their star family, struggle with the density of this Earth energy field, feels human behavior is primitive, feels very different, feels like they have been adopted, feels more connected to the stars than Earth, have a sense of mission and purpose. I don't know how many of my friends, they weren't believed. My partner, Alan, who passed 3 years ago, he would talk about being on the ship, and he would talk in star language, and people thought he was schizophrenic. I don't think he was schizophrenic at all. He was an early starseed. And the man Dumb, who was here last year, who he did pass recently, but he also had a lot of experiences would make him a starseed. He discovered late in life, like I did, of being a starseed. And he also had a mission, Dumb did. Feeling connected to specific star systems, have access to knowledge they have not consciously learned from. I am crazy with computers. I don't even know where I get it from. I'm 62, so I didn't grow up with these devices. I worked as a graphic designer, a multimedia producer for a small college, and the director of the distance learning would come into my little office near the video studio and say, "Suzanne, could you come help us?" Sure. I knew the answer, and I don't know where I got it from. It's not that I'm smart. I'm not super smart. I have a lot of learning disabilities, but it works out. Aware they can levitate, change frequency, move through solid objects. Haven't done that yet. Have abilities that are considered outside the norm. Have an understanding of complex subjects like physics, spirituality, nature of reality, nature of space-time, true origin of our species, and perceive the truth despite deception. Are aware of inaccurate educational programs on this planet and the harm they do. Are aware of the unhealthy manipulations of energies and frequencies. Are aware of mind control technologies. Are aware of negative self-serving human beings. And so, yeah, Mary has come a long way. If you are able to get her book, I suggest it. In her book, she outlines her hope that, at least starting in Australia where she lives right now, that she can talk to the school system and have adults listen to these kids, because these kids have a lot of answers of a lot of the deep problems that we're in right now. Number 3, we're on page 4 now. The hybrids, particulars of the hybrids from all races and within each ET race. The hybrid has characteristics of yet another layer of particulars. Please include the new human characteristic noted earlier. Not all hybrids have all of these characteristics, so be aware at this time in their development. So what I did was tease out the general list that I just gave you of starseed and hybrids. This list is particular to hybrids, and I guess starseeds could also have them. But hybrids, as Mary understands it, and then Barbara Lamb, and how I understand it from other people researching hybrids, there's different ways of conception with a hybrid. The mother can be abducted and brought up to a ship of a variety of different classes of races of ETs. It's not always the Greys. And Mary taught me that there's almost 60 or 80 different types of Greys. So whatever the whole mythology or reality about the Greys, whether they're military, I don't know.
Are you saying rays?
Greys.
Greys.
Grace.
Grace, Grace.
Yeah, like they can.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Grace. The aliens
Grace.
that are the small people, I think there's one out there hanging out. Yeah, the small people. And so there's almost 60 different sub-races of the Greys. And I know the Greys get a bad rap, but the mother gets taken on the ship. Sometimes the father gets taken on the ship. And the woman gets implanted. All kinds of different things happen. But the thing is, in all different ways, this all plays out with the developing the hybrid, whether the mother goes on the ship. And what happened to me, I believe, when I was 4, I used to play this game where I would look on the wall until these beautiful shapes would come up that are concentric. And it was a game that I had. And during that time when I was doing that, there was an energy ball that came into the room. And as an adult, I've experienced that. But this energy ball, I didn't know what it was when I was 4. I just saw something hanging in front of me, and it just, boof, went into my abdomen. And then later I read in Barbara Lamb's book that that can happen. You can become activated at the age of 4. It usually happens in the toddler age, before 5. And so, who knows? Maybe I'm a hybrid. I don't know. I can only take a look at what the documentation says and how much of it matches up. Being on the ship is one way of becoming, having a child that's a hybrid. The mother also may be a hybrid. So there's different layers of how many generations of hybrids. The activation can happen, like I said, with an energy ball type of situation. And then there's other ways in between the two. There's, I don't know if it's my lab, but there's military type hybrids where they were actually remembering when they were brought in as young children back into the military complex. And the mother and father made an agreement with the military. But the point is, from all this research, thank goodness, from a lot of different people, including Mary Rodwell, is that it doesn't always have to be a military type situation. The whole thing that all these researchers are coming into, yes, there are abductions, and yes, it's very traumatic for people, but hybridization is happening, according to Mary and Barbara Lamb and Miguel, is that the ETs realize that we're right on the verge of becoming an interplanetary race. And they can't get involved too much. Now, the Greys might have their own agenda because it might be a dying race, but the Arcturians, which is Mars star family, I believe I came here because I was just a bad teenager or something, you know? And they just want to help, but each race has its own ethical standards within its race that they can only go so far. Like the Arcturians would never abduct anybody physically and bring them on their ship. And so there's all these different storylines depending on the researcher. Did I lose anybody? Mm-mm. Okay. So these are the characteristics of hybrids. Each hybrid will take on the characteristics of the ET race they are vibrating with consciousness too. Arcturian consciousness equals Arcturian hybrid, ET, etc. And there are mixtures as well, and that was from Mary Rodwell's research. So, is there permission with the abductions to create the hybrids? Is there permission as a 4-year-old that some kind of energy thing came into my body? At a soul level, the researchers mostly agree that this is the case, that there's always permission on a soul level. So lower than normal body temperature. Oh my God, I always freak the doctors out. I've had like the director of the osteopathic medicine guy come down and talk to me because it didn't make sense what the x-ray was showing. I was recently in the hospital with a panic attack in July of 2018. They gave me an intake, blood pressure and temperature. I don't know why these nurses have to take your temperature with a big machine, but every machine they took my temperature said 94. Now, I'm not a medical professional like a nurse, so I just knew that that was not right. They kept bringing in all these machines. Oh my God, they're all broken. They just threw their hands up and they went over to the corner and they had a huddle together what to do next. I didn't know how much trouble I was in if I had 94. I found out later when I Googled it. I was supposed to be in hypothermia. But I didn't, my eyes and my blood pressure and the visual of me was not in hypothermia. My normal temperature is about 96. So whether that's related to some kind of ongoing medical issue like a thyroid problem, I don't know, but it's not normal to have 94. Highly empathic and psychic, highly telepathic, vivid dreams and psychic dreams. I've had a dream when my daughter was 4 in 1987. And the dream, there was a huge, beautiful sphere that landed in my yard, and I just knew in my dream they were aliens, and I was scared of them at the time, and I ran to the back of the house, and my daughter, who my daughter is, she ran out to greet them, and they both come out, they both come in. This man came in, and he had kind of like a flight suit on, and he looked like a human, but his face, the texture was not, it was different, and he had the type of face where he had larger eyes than normal, and kind of looked like James Cagney to me. I don't know why. But he was maybe about, I'm only 5'4", he was maybe about my height. And he came up to me and I was terrified in the dream until he said, "Oh, I'm so happy to meet you again." And we hugged, and when we hugged, there was this vibration from the heart chakra that went out in a spiral. And I never felt that in my life. And I was able to replicate that for years afterwards. And immediately after that, I was driving a flatbed truck in the neighborhood, and he was trying to find his children. So maybe that was my dad. I don't know. But, it was a dream, but it felt really real. It felt very real. And I like that part about the heart chakra. And this is before the internet. This is 87. It was before I even heard about any kind of program where children are created. So I don't know where I got that information from. Memories of being on a ship. I don't really have that, but I've had dreams where I can concentrate in a certain way and I teleport myself up into the ship. And when I went up to the ship, there was a dividing line. And on one part of the ship, there was like this black window. It was huge, and I could see all this blackness. And they said, if you cross that line, you can't come back. So of course I didn't cross the line, but I looked up on Google. I said, that dream wasn't real because I would see the stars. But apparently, and I don't know how it happens, when you're actually in space, maybe you're in hyperspace, there's no stars, at least that you can see. Or memories of DNA activation as a young toddler, being energy, being a letter person, and I love that term. It was coined by molecular biologist Dr. Lena Olson. And letter people are having Asperger's, autism, ADHD, and now as an adult, ADD. I am so dyslexic, and these are the letter people. Manipulation of time and space. I was an adult, and while I was going to college for my undergrad degree, my daughter was a toddler, and these women, I went over to their house in the campus area where we were going to school, and I sat down and I worked so hard, and they came up to me after a while and they said, you kind of freak me out. You remind me of Carrie from the movie, and that's the first version, and that totally freaks me out. That totally freaks me out. And so people that are hybrids are able to manipulate time and space. And what happened when I was a high school student in gym? I was pretty athletic. I mean, I'm kind of heavy now, but I was pretty athletic when I was a kid, and we would play volleyball. And when it was my time to serve, everybody liked that because I would serve. I wasn't doing it like, oh, I'm going to hypnotize the opponent, but I would serve and they weren't doing anything. The ball would go over. It happened time and time again, and I'm not telling you this because I'm special, but it's something I had to deal with while I was developing my own identity. And so that's why as an adult at the age of 62, I'm really on fire to try to help these kids. And how many times here has anybody been walking down the street and you're just in like deep thought, but you happen to be staring at somebody's back or neck who might be like from here to the sun, that sun over there. And all of a sudden they turn around. It's like, how does that happen? You know what I mean? And how many times have I just shut lights off? So there's got to be a connection. Who knows? And that's a whole new bag of worms or whatever that I have to deal with if I am a hybrid. Help people understand themselves and loved ones who are experiencing shifts in consciousness, awarenesses, and communications with extraterrestrials as part of an ego dissolution and part fracturing of their current identity. The idea of integration of their identity and sense of personhood is key. So I'm hoping that this helps people who have grandchildren, or if you yourself are identifying with some of these characteristics, that you're not alone. There's Mary accepts people, you know, as a counselor. She'll counsel you. There's Barbara Lamb. They do regressions. There's a lot of people in town who do the QH, is it quantum healing? HHT. Thank you. I can't, I'm dyslexic. I can't say that. Remember, we are all merely spirits in a containment of our bodies for a brief earth life. We know what we know, and we know what we know. So we all have to be kind to one another, even if we're different. Psychology may refer to identity as qualities, beliefs, personality, looks, and/or expressions that make a person, self-identity, or group, particularly social category or social group. It is my belief as a human or a new human, which we all are new humans, that we will all transgress and transcend the need to identify so strongly with our own or other people's construct of who we are. We simply know a larger truth, one that is beyond a societal limited view of us. And isn't that why they're here, the hybrids and all the starseeds and all the people? A lot of you are my age. We've gone through Woodstock. We've gone through Shirley MacLaine. We've gone through meditation. We're all meant to transcend ourselves right now. Because what we learned, according to the younger hybrids, is BS. We learned lies, and we learned how to be controlled and all of that. So it's really down to empowerment of people. Now, this is my research. According to, well, Eric Erickson is what I'm citing. According to Eric Erickson, a pioneer in the study of how we acquire and manage our sense of self through our identity throughout our lifetime, and coming from a psychodynamic framework, which means our environment has an effect on us. On some readings of Eric Erickson, the development of a strong ego identity along with the proper integration into a stable society and culture lead to a stronger sense of identity in general. Accordingly, a deficiency in either of these factors may increase the chance of an identity crisis or confusion. I swear, by the time I was 35, I thought I had a personality disorder or something, because I didn't even know who I was. I knew I didn't have dissociative disorder, but, so this is why I want to help, you know, because I had to deal with my dreams, and in my dreams, and this is coming from my experience, I don't think it's in the books, I was being counseled. I am counseled in my dreams. A man, I think it's the man I saw in my dream with the circular craft coming down, he reads to me at nighttime in my dreams. And I think a lot of the children are visiting their star family in their dreams, whether they remember it or not. Some of these younger kids are having visitations in the flesh of their star family. And so there's an identity development that is very dualistic right now. There's like several families who are helping these children develop their identities. The identity of starseeds and hybrids are formed in part from their knowledge or their lack thereof of their family of origin. And Mary Radwell is stating that a lot of these hybrids who are under the age of 10 are they just know their birth parents here on Earth are not their real parents, and they go up to those parents and say, I love you so much, but you're not my real mom and dad. And so that has happened in her research. Some of the newer children of the stars, my words, simply do not have any programming of the Earth or our society or their Earth family. Further investigation may be required. The idea of social identity and the starseed hybrid connection to this Earth world. Starseeds must, in a big way, develop some of their self-esteem through the identification to their ET family of origin and planetary interdimensional system. It is my belief that many starseeds hybrids get counseling via dream interaction with their ET family and also frequent downloads or messages. The problem I see as far as identity issues with developing children and also adult starseeds hybrids is when the DNA starseed activation comes late in life. And that could be happening to you guys right now. It maybe happened to when you were a child, but you just haven't remembered it yet. This problem is being addressed by the advocacy of the likes of important researchers like Mary Radwell and Barbara Lamb. And I mentioned that Mary Radwell is trying to advocate for the schools, at least starting out in Australia, to have the teachers sit down and listen to these young kids, because they do have a lot of great ideas for the rune nature of our ecology, of our environment, and our wars, and they have a lot of ideas that really might work. So loving care, nourishment of cognitive, psychic, and empathic skills must be a central part of any child or adult starseed hybrid's life. There are potential problems relating to ego and identity development in child and adult starseeds hybrids because of the dualistic nature of their identity development. Remember, we are all doing the best we can at any given moment. Encourage love, encourage commitment, encourage our powers. Do we all have superpowers?
Yeah.
We have superpowers. We have one another. During this mass awakening toward our new Earth, and the kids that she talks to talk about the new Earth. Number 5, outline Mary Radwell's research work and also that of Barbara Lamb. And so that I kind of said the summary of both of their work during the presentation. I don't want to go on and on, but I suggest to try to, I don't think that's in this library in Pittsburgh, but try your best to take a look at this on Amazon, and also Meet the Hybrids by Barbara Lamb and Miguel. I can't remember his last name, but he wrote that book with Barbara Lamb. The bibliography is right here if you want to look into that. So the activity, and I'm not going to go into this, I got permission. There's a website called Plato's Academy, and there's a whole list of hybrid and starseed type, especially starseed characteristics that they kind of gleaned from all over the place. And so sinutitis is something I have, vivid dreams. I don't have scanty hair or large eyeballs. I have temperature differences. I have mind power. So these are all yours to keep, the handout. And sensitivity. And I love what they put, what the Plato Academy put at the bottom of this. not to beat yourself up. And I learned to beat myself up very badly, being who I was. In school, I always had the note coming home to my mother that your daughter cannot be in this class if she continues to look out the window all the time. And so, or being a carey person, because maybe on some level, those women feared me because they knew that I had some kind of weird vibrational thing going on. Who knows what that is? It's hard to articulate in words a lot of our experiences. But the bottom line for my talk is, anybody you know, including you yourself, be kind to yourself, seek encouragement and validation from your experiences, and try to encourage the children who are coming in, who might be your own children or grandchildren. Just validate them is really important, because what they have to offer is really going to change our lives. Before I end, and that was pretty much it, anybody want to look at my resume? It's up here, or I'll have it if you want to take a look at it. When I was working on my master's, my thesis that never really got published, but it was about the psychodynamic nature of trauma victims and what that does to their identity after having a trauma happen to them as children. And there's also a really interesting case study that I can pass around. You can keep it if you want. I have it on my website. But I did a 7-year study of a man named Jay who started out as a client for mediumship. I'm a medium in Pittsburgh. And he taught himself, with my encouragement, to connect with his wife who passed on, Georgia. And I do have informed consent, for the 7-year descriptive case study. But it's fascinating. I mean, she was even coming into his room. He didn't have any psychological problems of schizophrenia. I went to his therapist numerous times and had vivid dreams about her, and was able to teach himself how to connect. And so this whole abstract and case study goes through Kubler-Ross's work with the stages of grief and other things in here. So if anybody's interested, they can have that. The last thing I want to share is there's a really nice opportunity coming up to go to Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. And it's July 18th through the 22nd. It is quite expensive. I think it's about $900, but you're 4 days on the reservation in a like a compound, and the elders will be there. The elders will be there, and the descendants of Sitting Bull, and we're going to go to some of the sacred sites in the Black Hills. We're going to go to some of the places where there were massacres. We were invited by the Lakota elders to go to the Sundance as observers. Mary Rodwell cannot make it this time around because it had been rescheduled, and then also Barbara Lamb couldn't make it. They're both older than us, I think. Mary doesn't seem that old, but so they asked me to talk, and I'm going to talk and present this particular presentation after Whitley